So we got beta keys to Destiny, which was a game that I thought I was excited about, but I don't know if I am anymore. Are you excited about Destiny?
I was initially when I didn't know anything about it, and the more I look at it, it just looks like Halo multiplayer to me.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that about the beta that they have played too.
And I mean, I've seen a little bit of video. I've seen very little. I haven't really read anything about it online, so I don't know what the general internet clamor is. But
how much information is too much information for a game?
I feel like maybe a 5 to 10 minute gameplay video is sufficient, and probably shouldn't show more than that.
The thing about Destiny is that they showed gameplay at last year's E3. They showed gameplay at this year's E3, and they haven't shut up about it since then. So I feel like it's getting to the point where they're giving us too much. They're enabling us to hate this game before it even comes out.
It's kind of like with movies. Like, they release too many trailers, too many. Like,
right.
they'll do like a 10-minute like clip of the movie. I feel like I've seen 100 different videos for the new Planet of the Apes movie.
Yes.
Like, it's getting to the point where it's like, do I even need to go see this? I feel like I've got the Cliff Notes now.
Ever since the original BioShock, I've done my best to stay informed about a game, but not find out too much about it. So I'll read an article that's, talking about the development of BioShock or Destiny or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll try not to watch videos. I try not to read about
You don't want to overexpose yourself.
Right. Because BioShock's a wonderful game. But I was so hyped for it that when it came out, I was like, you know what? Maybe this isn't quite as good as I thought it was going to be. The fact of the matter is, it is as good as I thought it was going to be. I just built up so much expectation that it was never going to reach that. Now I play BioShock, it's like, wow, game is a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like with Destiny, I'm starting to get real weary of it, and I've been actively trying to avoid it, and I'm still getting weary of it.
Well, is Destiny supposed to be kind of like a new epic series, like the way Halo was? Like, kind of a saga? Because if that's what they're going for, I feel. I mean, is it multiplayer only?
I believe it's multiplayer only, but there's still story missions and like objectives and stuff. I think they're trying to sort of. This is mostly speculation. I'm not an expert on it. I think they're trying to meld the sort of first-person shooter, like MMO thing,
mm-hmm.
where everybody's in the same world and stuff, but you're doing your own thing. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the vibe I get.
Okay. I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I guess so.
I mean, I have faith that Bungie can do it. Whatever they're doing, I feel confident they can successfully do it. They're a reputable company. They've made a lot of great games that I really enjoy. I don't know if I'm gonna be that interested in this game, though.
Right. Do you like Halo because of its pedigree, or do you like Halo because you think it's a great game, or both, or what?
I like Halo because I think it has a very interesting and engaging and, for video games anyway, somewhat unique story.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go to like books and novels and stuff, it's not really very unique, but for video games it is.
I like Halo for the story as well.
I get really drawn into it. I mean, the gameplay is certainly fun. It's competent. It's fine. The multiplayer at various points has been enjoyable. So when is this beta? You said it's in July.
Yeah,
middle of July.
It says on the back here, July 14th to the 21st.
Maybe we should do like a special kind of side episode just to sort of discuss it.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right.
I agree.
Okay, it's been decided.
All right. You want to kick this off?
Yes, I do. Podcast theme music, go. Welcome to episode 6 of Player 2 Press Start. I'm Dan. You can find me on Twitter at BAGROWD.
I'm killagreg. You can find me on Twitter at killagreg17. You can find us at Player2, PLAYRTWO. What are we talking about this week, Dan?
This week we are talking about Battlefield 4, and sort of framing it as a retrospective of the Battlefield series.
Yeah. I think we're going to mostly talk about Battlefield 3 in the past, but...
Yeah, it'll be largely focused on 3, because that's the one most similar to this. But the other ones I'll probably have a brief mention.
Why don't you go ahead and talk about that now?
Well, I sort of got my introduction to the Battlefield series quite a long time ago with Battlefield 1942. Was that the original entry in the series? I believe it was.
Yeah.
So there was Battlefield 1942. I think they had Battlefield 1943, but I never played that one. And then they had Battlefield 1942 Secret Weapons of World War II, which was pretty awesome because they had all kinds of like wonky guns and jetpacks and and like a missile jet plane thing that you could fly around in. That was a pretty wild game. But I mean, compared to what the series is now, it's like night and day. Like it's like I can't even imagine that these games are connected to each other. I mean, short of having tickets, and that's probably about it.
Well, I think the main connection and what the Battlefield series has always stood on is its large-scale multiplayer war games.
That's true. And vehicles.
Which
were a part of 1942.
Right. It's always been a lot of people, big maps, and vehicles. That's the Battlefield calling card.
Yeah, actually, and now that you say it, 1942, I mean, I wouldn't exactly call it Rush, per se. I mean, I guess it was Capture the Flag. Or Conquest, I guess it would be closest to.
I think Conquest has been the original.
So, that, I guess it is more similar than I give it credit for. And I remember they had, a couple of years ago, they had on Xbox Arcade, they had like a download of 1942. Was it just the flying thing, or was it the whole game? I don't remember.
No, the whole game.
There was some sort of flying feature as well. There was some like flying...
Yeah, I think they had
thing.
like a different map or something that was just flying.
Yeah, that was unique.
Flying actually kind of worked in those games.
It wasn't horrible.
And we can talk about it later, but I think that the functionality of airplanes diminished over time.
I think partly that's because the airplanes are, I mean, they're jets now, and they're so quick. And if they want to be realistic, you have to have a jet that's going to scream across the map in 2 seconds. You know, if you're flying some crappy 1940s airplane, it's a lot slower. So anyway, Battlefield 4 for the Windows, PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, and Xbox One. That's a lot of platforms.
That's a lot of platforms, and I think, again, we'll get to this later, but I think it sort of diminished the quality of some of them.
Yeah, probably a bit more of a money grab than maintaining artistic integrity.
Oh, yeah, because we all know that's what EA is known for.
Yeah. This game was released on October 29th, 2013. So it hasn't even been a year yet.
And it feels like an old game.
It does feel like it's been out a long time.
So, was Battlefield 3 the only recent one that you played?
Yes. I played 1942, then the expansion Secret Weapons of World War II, then Battlefield 2 a long time ago. Very briefly, 2142, which was that sci-fi game, which was fine, I guess. And then, was it Bad Company that came out after that?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't play Bad Company. Then I picked the series up again after a number of years and got into Battlefield 3 pretty heavily, and then now Battlefield 4. So that's sort of my tenure with the series. Where did you start with it? What's your sort of game lineup?
I started in earnest with Bad Company 2, which I thought was advertised as like sort of a side game. It didn't really get that Bad Company, that Battlefield fanfare to it. But as I found out over time, I mean, it really is just a full-fledged Battlefield sequel.
Yeah, it seemed like it was a pretty big standalone thing. Like, in hindsight, the way it's mentioned.
It was. And I think somehow they advertised it poorly or something because it didn't sell... The first Bad Company didn't sell particularly well. The second one didn't sell insanely well either.
Is it Battlefield 2 Bad Company?
No, it's just Battlefield Bad Company and then Battlefield Bad Company 2.
Oh, okay.
What they were trying to do was make a more compelling single player.
Something, by the way, they have struggled to do with the entire series.
Right. Bad Company 1 and 2 were basically about a group of soldiers who were the bad company. You know, they're snarky,
kind of
ragtag, jerk guys. You know what I mean? Like,
they've all got character.
Right. They all have character. They're sending quips as they blow dudes up and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think there was a sci-fi element. There was like some doomsday weapon they were trying to stop and all that. But attached to that single player was, in my opinion, probably the best war game multiplayer ever. I'll do a lot, as we talk about 3 and 4, I'll do a lot of comparisons to Bad Company 2, just because I think out of all of them, Bad Company 2 was the best in the series. But I won't spoil it all now. We'll call back to it. But I played so much Bad Company 2, it's not even funny.
How much difference is there between Bad Company 1 and Bad Company 2?
I didn't play hardly any of the multiplayer in Bad Company 1.
Okay.
As for the single player, I didn't notice much. I bought Bad Company 1. I played it for maybe a couple days, and I actually traded it in pretty quickly.
Okay.
Until I got Bad Company 2.
Okay.
So do you want to just start talking about 4?
And then work our way back a little bit?
Right, or do you want to just start talking about 3?
Why don't we start with 4?
Okay, let's start with 4.
Well, I mean, as we mentioned, this is going to largely be couched in its comparisons to 3, because they are so similar. So starting off, we'll touch on it real briefly. You have the single player.
Wait, let me just point something out real quickly before you talk about the single player. At this point, I think the Battlefield series is a multiplayer. It's like the reverse of everything else. You know, Halo is a single player with a multiplayer. I don't know what another good example is. Everything has a multiplayer tacked on. I definitely think the Battlefield series is multiplayer with a single player tacked on. So much so that when you buy Battlefield 3 or 4, you open the case, the first disc is the multiplayer, not the single player.
They know.
They know. They absolutely know. So go ahead. Why don't you talk a little bit about the plot of 4?
I cannot tell you the plot of 4. It is convoluted, but compared to 3, it is significantly more enjoyable. Both games provide you with guns that you get access to by completing missions, that you can then use those guns in the multiplayer, and it's the only way to unlock them. I did not bother with most of them in 3. It was too painful to get through the single player. It was so boring and just so uninspired. But in 4, you have characters that you sort of get to know. Rereading the description before we recorded the podcast here, like, I remembered the names when I was reading them. I was like, oh yeah, I remember those characters. Like, I remember some of the events that happened. Like, I remember some of the stuff that happened. It was fairly movie-like, pretty action-packed, a lot of stuff going on. And while I was playing the single player, I had a good time. And for a game that's so multiplayer-focused, and like everything I do in this, I'm used to playing it with a friend of mine, there on the line to sort of like provide backup and give me help and all that stuff. And like, I was fine without that for the single player. It was good enough, and it was good enough to trick me into playing it to earn some extra guns.
I find at this point in general, I just don't like that style of game.
If they didn't have free guns for me to earn, if they didn't have guns for me to earn by playing it, I wouldn't play it.
It's just sort of like a rogue shooting gallery.
Yeah.
The only issue is that I don't think that works very well outside of third-person shooters, because you're waiting for somebody to pop up so you can shoot them in the head, but there is no legitimate cover system for you.
Mm-hmm.
You can crouch, but you can't see because you're in first-person mode. At least in third-person mode, when you're crouching behind a half barrier, you can still see the rest of the playing field.
One could say it's more realistic, though.
Yes, but it's unintuitive to like have a button to peek your head up. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, they do have when you I don't fully disagree with you, but like when you get to the edge, you get that option to sort of like sneak your gun out like halfway and look. Like you get the little peek option when you're just at the edge of cover.
I don't know if I care about realism in video games. I want it to be fun, not real.
I accept that. I think we're going to return to that point later on in this analysis. But that's fair.
So, as a whole, you said the plot was fine but forgettable.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking at the paragraph. I'm like, I'm going to read this. There's no way I'm going to be able to even remember this for the podcast. And having played it and read it, I still can't tell you what it's about. It involves Asia. The first one involved the Russians. Or the third one, I mean.
Sure.
Battlefield 3.
Did you play the Battlefield 3 single player?
A little bit of it.
Oh, I didn't play any of it. I didn't even put that disc in.
Well, it had Russians, didn't it?
Yeah.
But it was also in the Middle East.
It was all over the place. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It is not the focus of these games. So, the team of soldiers you work with in the single player is good. The free guns, hey, that's great. I love that. Give me more of that. And it's like so easy to get headshots. It's really fun. So, you know, if you're turned off by the single player because of like Halo or Battlefield 3, you know, this one's worth playing. It's fine. If you bought the game, you might as well make your way through it. It's entertaining enough. So that's the plot.
Yeah. You really sold it.
Well, I feel like that is selling it for a Battlefield game.
I wouldn't disagree with you. So, how do you think this game looks?
Fine.
Fine.
I think these games look... I mean, they don't look realistic. They don't look, like, real. But they look video game real. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, they look good, but they don't look, like, convincing as real. And maybe that's just because it's a 360. You know, that's been out for a long time. When did that come out? Like, 2006 or 5 or something?
2005, maybe?
Yeah. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're doing the best they can. You know, I mean, that's a long time to be stuck with those specs.
I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm pretty sure the processing power of the chip inside a 360 is like 233 gigahertz or something. No, wait. Yeah. What are we at now?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Okay. I'll cut this.
It's okay.
It's a side note.
Just rephrase it to say that the Xbox is like really underpowered compared to computers now.
I'll just cut it. It's not important.
All right. No, it's relevant. Say it. It is. It's an old system.
I just need to know which one's which. What are we in right now? Like when you said the processing power is 2.3 gigahertz?
Yeah, well, giga is... A gigabyte is bigger than a megabyte, so a gigahertz is going to be better than a megahertz.
Okay, then it's megahertz.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure the processing power of the 360 is something extraordinarily low. It's either 233 megahertz or maybe even 300 megahertz. That's like a tenth of what computers are using now. It's actually pretty impressive what they can still pop out of a 360.
Yeah.
I thought the graphics in Battlefield 4 are actually pretty bad.
Like, bad? Like, Superman for the N64 bad?
Like it.
Or just, like, not quite as good as maybe previous entries or as good as you expected?
I actually would even venture to say bad.
Really?
I would.
No.
Yeah. I have
that's poppycock.
I have a theory as to why I think that is, but I'll get there. Out of the three recent Battlefields that I played, I think Bad Company 2 looks the best. Then I thought Battlefield 3 looked slightly better, but still pretty good. I think Battlefield 4 looks very unpolished compared to the other ones.
Why do you think that is?
This is pure speculation. This is the first Battlefield series that's been appearing on next-gen consoles / PCs. You know, PCs aren't next-gen, but they're obviously significantly more powerful.
Right.
I think these games were designed to have higher resolution gaming right from the get-go, and that what we're playing when we play Battlefield 4 is actually an inferior version of the game.
We should mention that we are playing this on the Xbox 360. We didn't specify that, so that's what we're playing it on.
So when I think there's not that extra level of detail in...
That extra pop
from in a building or
a texture.
Exactly. I think it's because the Xbox 360 and the PS3 are not capable of producing what the game was designed to produce. Unfortunately, we did not get an opportunity to play the next-gen console, so this is, like I said, mostly speculation, but it seems to make sense to me.
Yeah, it's a reasonable enough analysis.
I thought Battlefield 3 looked more lush, and I thought Battlefield Bad Company 2 looked significantly better to that. There's actually a graphic out there, like a what are they called?
An animated GIF.
It's not animated, but
Probably
there's a GIF out there
Probably not
where it actually just compares a tank from Bad Company 2, Battlefield 3, and Battlefield 4.
Okay.
And I would venture to say that if it didn't have the words underneath there, you would say that Bad Company 2 was the most recent game. It just looks.
We should see if we can
better.
track that down, and we should post that on our Twitter.
Okay, yeah, we'll see if we can find it.
Because that'd be good to see. Because that's the thing. Like a lot of times, I don't really. I mean, I care about graphics, and I mostly notice them, but without that side by side comparison, sometimes I really just don't pick up on this stuff. Like I remember watching. I saw like one of those things. I saw a video where somebody did a comparison of one of the more recent Tomb Raider games, and that's on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, or just Xbox and PlayStation.
It's on PC as well.
Okay. So, and they sort of, the video was kind of neat because they'd take the same exact scene from the games, but they sort of had this swipe that would sort of move back and forth, and it would pause and move back and forth, so you could see exactly what the differences were. And it's the same thing you're talking about. But, I mean, the differences are noticeable in that context, but when you're playing, I don't think most people would really see the difference. But you can see how things are different on different platforms.
I believe there's an organization that does that. It's either, I want to say it's called Digital Foundry. I think it's Digital Foundry. They're the ones who do those like side-by-side comparisons.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
It is pretty neat. But just as a whole, I was unimpressed by Battlefield 4's graphical presentation. Maybe that's just me being hypercritical because I like all the other games so much more. But
I will say the level I probably found the most breathtaking out of everything I've played is Damavand Peak.
For sure.
Like, the way the wind blows and the way the stuff just blows around, I just find that level very impressive. And, like, when you jump off that cliff, and I mean, that's in 3.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I feel like I should be saying the most breathtaking thing is from the most recent game. And I'm not.
There is no, like, standout set piece, to me, in Battlefield 4.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think what they tried, they're in, what's it called? I got it here. Siege of Shanghai. In the middle, there's a giant skyscraper that falls. I think that was supposed to be like a big set piece. Unfortunately, it's only you watch it happen. You don't participate in it happening.
Yeah. Like you're not in the destruction. You're not trying to like get out of the rubble.
Right. In Damn the Van Peak, when you've taken that point and then you jump off that giant cliff and you have to parachute down, that's one of the most fun things I've ever done in a video game.
The first time you do that, it's amazing.
It's almost like you don't even know what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like the level ended. What do I do?
Wait, I'm supposed to jump off of this? Or do I just stand up here and shoot down? Like, what am I doing?
Right. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
There are none of those in Battlefield 4.
Pretty much not.
It's cool when the dam breaks. But the other issue between when the dam breaks, which is supposed to be a set piece, and when the building falls when it's supposed to be a set piece, if you're not looking there at that exact moment, you completely miss it.
Yeah. But I mean, if you were actually there, that was actually happening, there's no way you wouldn't not see it.
Right.
You would be 100% looking that way.
Right. And I don't know what the solution is to that. I think the real answer is be the set piece, don't watch the set piece.
Force every character model when it happens to just auto look that way.
That would be so lame. Everybody would be furious. Like you're shooting at a dude and all of a sudden you're like, no.
There's no good. No matter what they do, I won't be happy.
What they should do is have you plant the bomb that explodes that building.
Oh yeah.
And then, I mean, I don't know. This is me being really greedy. Plant the bomb at the base of the building, start a timer, and run out of that building. So then, like as it blows up, the building is crumbling around you, and you have to avoid stuff or whatever. That would be fun. Yeah,
they never add in those objectives into the maps. It's always like if you're playing Rush, those are your 3 points.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like those are your points. That's it. We're not going to add anything more into this game type.
I feel like scenario gameplay could be really fun in Battlefield.
Yeah.
They don't really venture into anything that's like, this man is the general. This team is tasked with protecting the general. That team is tasked with killing the general. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Give the general a tank or something. I don't know what. Just
or set this bomb here. There's an objective you have to blow up. Move to that point. All right, you've got that one. Now you got to advance. Move to like it's always like with Rush. It's always this dumb computer station.
Yeah. Which is lame.
Always put in the most ridiculous location. Like it's like semi-protected, but in a way that's kind of stupid.
Some of them are just like out in the open.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I guess that's the one.
Like in the one with the dam, whatever that one's called.
I have it written down here.
We
Kang Dam.
Yeah, we have a lot of names for these levels, which are not the actual name for the levels. So sharing them here on the podcast is not going to help you guys.
Some of them are a little vulgar.
Yeah.
So, what do you? We've started talking about this already, but how do you feel about the world that was created in Battlefield 4?
Honestly, I feel like it's more of a three-dimensional world. They've added sort of in Battlefield 3, you definitely had your X and your Y. They added that Z to this, where you have that sense of height, which I don't feel like. I mean, you had it in 3. You could get helicopters up to places, and there were certain times, you could use a MAV, as a hovercraft to get up somewhere. Like, you could do stupid tricks to get up places.
Using the MAV as an elevator to get to places you weren't supposed to was one of my favorite video game things of all time, and they eventually patched it out, which made me really upset.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why they did, but it is really sad. But that kind of like that height element was really not a component of Battlefield 3, but it is really big in 4. You have buildings with elevators, and I feel like that, buildings with elevators and making it just that much easier to get on top of things and like ladders to get on top of buildings. I feel like they paid a lot more attention to the whole environment and not just being on the ground surface. I feel like that makes the world a little bit more. It draws you in a little bit more, and it's a little bit more fulfilling. That being said, I still find the levels in 3 to be more fun. They're more enjoyable. I find and I was telling this to Greg earlier off the podcast. I feel that Battlefield 3 has more choke points. Like Grand Bazaar is a perfect example. There's so many spots where that happens. You don't have as much of that in 4. There seems to always be another way around in 4, and you don't often get bottlenecked. That being said, I still love choke points. They're super fun, either as a challenge to get past or as like a defensive thing to hold on to and keep the player held back. World building, I feel like maybe 4 did a slightly better job, but it's just not as much fun.
See, to me, world building is mostly, does this feel real?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think 4 feels more real.
While the terrain does make more sense in a real sense, or with a real quality, I felt like the lack of definition in... I mean, maybe I'm making this up. Maybe I'm the only person who saw this. But it didn't seem lived in to me. Whereas a lot of Battlefield 3 did. The architecture of 4 makes more sense in a real sense. The levels are laid out like a real city would be. But in Battlefield 3, it looked to me like the city would be inhabited and everybody left, and now you're fighting there.
Wait, in 3 or 4?
In 3. Think about Grand Bazaar, how there are cars all over the place, like bombed out cars, and it actually looks like there's piles of rubble there where there used to be stuff. The bazaar still has items in it. Even in something as simple as there's stacked pieces of wood that look on a building that looked like it was being constructed. It looks to me like there were people there that left. Whereas with Battlefield 4, everything is sort of pristine.
It's empty.
Yes, empty. That's exactly it.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
So to me,
that's a fair observation.
World building of 3 is better because it feels like this is a real world place. Whereas in 4, it looks like this is a Battlefield map.
Hmm.
Think about Scene Crossing in Battlefield 3. That's the one that takes place in a Paris knockoff. Or maybe it's supposed to be Paris. I don't know. There's flyers still on stuff that are like waving around and flying across. There are those boats that are in the water. You know, some of them are still floating, but one of them got sank.
Sunk.
One of them got sunk. Thank you. It just feels like this is where people lived.
Yeah.
There's no evidence of that at all in most of that. Maybe the resort one. What's that called? Oh boy.
Hainan Resort.
Maybe in Hainan Resort, that one feels a little bit like there's boats up on blocks, and it, you know.
I found Zavod 311 kind of convincing.
No, that one. You're right. That one is.
That one feels like an old
the
Soviet
exception.
site.
Right.
It feels like an old Soviet base that's been abandoned for a long time.
And that's the one that has like machinery that you can turn on for really no reason other than set decoration.
Yeah.
It just feels better to me.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's the exception, not the rule.
Yeah. That's kind of a difficult one to. It's like they sort of both games sort of they excel in some ways and don't excel in others, and it's I guess maybe it kind of breaks even because they do some things great, and like to me the maps in 3 feel more like a map than a world, but they're more fun and like you said they're more filled out with things that make it feel a little more real. I don't know, it's hard. But in 4, it feels like a world, but like you're saying, it doesn't have...
But that's boring. The real world is boring. I want level design. I understand a choke point makes you feel like, oh, I'm playing a video game, but that's what's fun.
Yeah, that's a tough call. That's an interesting one. I'm gonna end up thinking about that for a while now.
First off, there are no right answers.
Yeah,
just opinions, and you can come back to it if you want.
So... Co-op success.
It's an interesting question.
It is.
I don't think it works.
4 does not work that well as a game. I mean, obviously it's multiplayer focused, but specifically the issue of co-op, where you're working together and you're focused and you're like on the same team trying to work together. This is hard to do that. I mean, like we have tried on more than one occasion to make that a specific. We start playing. We are going to have a co-op experience. We're going to work together. We're going to stick together. One of us is going to do one job. One of us is going to do the other, and it's going to work. And it never does.
Right. There are 4 classes.
Yep.
There's assault, support, engineer, and then sniper.
Yep.
3 of those work together pretty well. You know, the assault is the guy with the good machine guns. He can revive people.
He's like a typical grunt.
Right.
He's pretty well balanced.
Engineer can
fix things,
and it can lay landmines and have rocket launchers and stuff. And then a support has giant machine guns that never run out of ammo, and they can also dispense ammo. So
and they've got things like mortars. Do they put down mines, or is that the engineer?
That's the engineer.
Okay.
So they sort of are designed to play off each other.
Well, and then you got the sniper, which is pretty obvious.
But he's
kind of he's recon, isn't that what they call it?
Yeah, recon. You're right. I'm sorry.
But that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah. They're designed to play off each other, and they put you in squads of 4. At least in Battlefield 3.
Yeah.
Battlefield 4. The squads are all over the place. Sometimes you have 4, sometimes you have 5, sometimes you have 5 and a commander. Who knows how that game works? So I think the idea is that you're supposed to be able to play it as cooperatively, but I think that it fails in that pretty frequently.
This, to be fair, this is actually this is kind of difficult in 3 as well for the same reason, and that is, it's kind of a pie in the sky wish that you're going to be able to work with your friends. And that's because when you die, it's unlikely that your friends died as well. So that means you're in a position where now you have to wait, 5 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever it is? You have to wait a short period of time before you can respawn. Then you can respawn, and the question is, are your friends still on the map? Are they still alive? Did they just get killed? Or is it going to be another 10 seconds before they can spawn? Or are they on the map, but they're in a dangerous place, or you don't want to spawn on them, or for whatever reason, or they're off wandering around a bush being stupid. So you end up being in a position where you're sort of like out of sync with your friends and their locations and what they're doing. You know, if you've got a friend that's off being a sniper, there's not a lot you can play off of there. He's out in the middle of nowhere with a sniper rifle. Like, you could lay there giving him more ammo, but then, like, how much fun are you going to have doing that?
Right.
Not much. Like, the way it really works well is, like, you really need, the sniper's sort of like a whole separate animal, but you have assault, who's going to keep people alive, you have the engineer, who's going to take out vehicles, and you have support, who's going to keep you with ammo and keep you being able to destroy those vehicles by giving you ammo. Things like that. Like, that's kind of like, those three really work in sync together. But the likelihood that you're going to be next to all those people all the time, it just doesn't work out in reality.
It's rare. And how many times have you know, we'll both play as Assault, for an example, and you'll say, Greg, do you have ammo?
Yeah.
No, but next time I die, I'll come back, I'll bring you some. All right, no problem. So I'll die, I'll switch over to Engineer, or support, and be like, all right, I got your ammo, and you're like, don't worry about it, I'm dead.
Yeah, or I've already found ammo, or like,
yeah.
Like, it's like you never seem to be the right class for the right situation, no matter what you do.
So I just think as a whole, it doesn't work that well,
and especially if your whole squad gets wiped out. Like, even if say let's say hypothetically you were working together, your whole squad gets wiped out. Or most of you have been wiped out. Say three out of the 4 are dead. You've got one guy left. Well, you all start spawning on him, and he's off in the front lines. You all get killed again, and it's just like you're put in the meat grinder.
Yeah, and a lot of time you do.
You spawn on whoever's available because you want to get back into the game. You don't want to sit there. The game is not that tactical and that strategic.
In 4 they do add the ability to see what the person you're going to spawn on is seeing,
which helps.
But realistically, I don't look at it that often. They pretend like this is a game for cooperation.
Yeah.
But realistically, it's not.
Playing those different classes seemed like it worked better in, like, Wolfenstein Enemy Territory or Team Fortress.
Agreed. And that's the thing. So, I was I'm not going to say high-level SOCOM 2 player, but I was a very good SOCOM 2 player. I was in a clan. We played for money matches. We took it very serious. We had roles. I was a sniper. You know, there was 12 people in our clan. We had 3 snipers, 3 whatever. I mean, it's been a long time. 3 machine gun people, so on and so forth. Everybody had a role. I'm looking for that game again. I would love a game where people had a role to play and everybody did that role. And Battlefield just isn't that game, even though I think it tries to present itself as such.
It does, and like I started Battlefield 3. I mean, that was like my reintroduction to the series was Battlefield 3 after having stepped away from it for a number of years. And I was dedicated to being a sniper. Like, I love playing a sniper in games. I just enjoy it. It's fun, and I mean, it was to my detriment to do it. One, because I was slower to advance. Because first of all, it's not easy being a sniper, and second of all, you just don't get as many kills. And I mean, you have to be really good. And I wasn't that great. I mean, like I was fine. I had some good moments, but I wasn't so good at it that I was going to like excel as being a sniper. But it's not like me ever being a sniper helped our team. And that's when I learned that in these games, being a sniper will sometimes get you an amazing shot or an amazing situation, but rarely is it going to turn the tide of a battle. Especially when you're playing we almost exclusively play Rush.
Yeah.
Where, you have 2 or 3, is it always 2?
It's always 2.
Okay, so you've got two points that you need to take before you can move on to the next set of points. You take those, move on to the next set of points. So that's kind of like you're slowly advancing the front line, towards the end of the level. And, I was I always wanted to play the sniper, but the sniper is not going to be going for those rush points. And sometimes that one lone player going for that Rambo moment is what makes all the difference. And how often is that a sniper? Rarely. It's usually an engineer or an assault player. They're usually the ones that go balls out and go straight for it, and they get lucky. But if you're back sniping people, that's probably not going to happen. I'm
a significantly different player in Battlefield than Dan is. I am that guy who's rushing for every point. And I'm not stupid about it, but too many people in these games just spend too much time holding back.
Or just going for a deathmatch, which is not what we're playing.
We're playing Rush. There are deathmatch options. Go play them.
The funny thing is, I've become you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, I don't play as a sniper. I barely ever... In Battlefield 4, I've barely played as a sniper. And I've pretty much just given up on it entirely.
Yeah.
And I'm always... Like, I'm pushing the line and, like, trying to go for the point. Like, I'm focused on the points and, like, I want to get that Rambo moment and, like, I try. And I'm a dedicated assault now. Like, that's what I play. That's not how I started with Battlefield 3.
No. I mean, it used to be Dan would have, like, 4 kills,
yeah.
one death.
Yeah.
And I would have, like, 25 kills and 22 deaths.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that just shows where we started. But now...
I mean, you're still better than me. It's a simple fact of the matter. You are better than me at these games, but I get a lot more kills as Assault, and I make a lot more progress as Assault than I ever did as a sniper.
For sure. So, we have down, is it fun? I'm going to ask you a different question. I asked you this earlier. Why do we play Battlefield?
Because it's really fun to kill people.
It is fun.
It feels so good and fulfilling to get that kill. Especially when you've done something kind of stupid and you turn it around, or you do something so amazing.
Battlefield does create these moments where you just feel like a badass.
Yeah. Baller.
Yeah. There have been moments where I'll shoot somebody from on top of a building, parachute down, shoot 2 more people while I'm falling down, get to the ground, run up behind a dude, stab him in the neck, plant the point.
Do you remember that video that was going? It was on YouTube, and I know I shared it with you. And it's a canned thing. It's like It's like pre-done. It's all scripted, but it sums up perfectly why Battlefield is fun.
I do remember that.
It's Battlefield 3, and there's a guy on Damma Van Peak, and he runs the entire map by himself and takes out like 30 people, and everything he does is amazing. Watching this video is amazing, and every one of those kills, it's like one of those moments, one of those Battlefield moments, where it's like, holy shit, did I just do that? Like, I'm a super soldier.
Yes.
And this video is just like it's like a 2-minute thing where the guy just runs the whole level and does it, and it's incredible.
And sometimes you just have those runs where you're like, I'm unstoppable.
Yeah.
You just do awesome things. You're hopping through windows, throwing grenades, knifing people, jumping off buildings.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun. I really like, grenading a hole into a wall and running through and just, like, clearing a room and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
they're not expecting that.
Yeah. Or, like, if you get good at, like, a really specific thing, that makes it fun. Because you have, like, your specialty. Like, I got so good with the M320 grenade launcher. And, like, people use it. But I became, like, a sniper with it. You
are impressive with it. I can never kill anything.
That is the only thing in Battlefield where I am truly impressive. I feel like I really excel with killing people with the M320. Like, I've figured the arc perfectly, and it's so frustrating because they keep nerfing it and making it less powerful. And it's like, I mean, it still feels good when I know I hit somebody with it, but it's not quite the same oomph that it had with 3. But, like, that's also something that makes you feel like a real winner.
I'm going to use your space pen for a second. Oh, no, I'm not.
Just click it in. Just one other point I wanted, just so we didn't skip it, regarding the success or not of co-op, is in Battlefield 3 you got 100 points for doing a revive of somebody on your team, and in Battlefield 4 I believe you only get like 20 or 25 points.
20.
I feel like that's a real lack of incentive to make that effort to go get somebody, and I feel like I thought that was such a brilliant idea in 3. to make killing somebody as essential as reviving your teammates. And I feel like that really added to the sense of cooperative play in a way that you just don't have in 4. Like, nobody is ever helping you in 4.
It did. Basically, it said it's okay to want to play as a medic.
It's okay to play defensively.
Right. Whereas in 4, they very obviously said, well, people are taking advantage of that. Well, they weren't taking advantage of that. They were helping their team and getting rewarded for it.
Yeah.
So nerfing that is just...
Stupid.
So the reason I asked, why we play this game is because you're excited about it. You have, just off the top of your head, you had 5 stories of just great times that you had. Because when we asked the question, is it fun, I don't necessarily know that it is.
Yeah, we sort of came up with maybe, or we're not sure.
Yeah, I wrote I don't know, and Dan wrote maybe.
I feel like it's because we have it does the core of it is good. The core of Battlefield for a long time has been good. The problem is all of these little things around the edges, all kind of like the nitpicky. Most of what we're talking about is relatively nitpicky. The bulk of the game is fine, and it works well.
I don't know if that's true.
But those nitpicky things, as we've talked about before, are really what make or break a game.
Here's the issue.
I mean, that's been our thesis in other games.
Yes, like Dead Space 3.
Yeah.
So, Dead Space 3 was a pretty good game with a lot of little nitpicks that brought it down. I feel like Battlefield 4 is, at best, a mediocre game, and there are so many nitpicks that it brings it straight down to the crapper. Out of the box, this game is broken.
Civilization Revolution was a lot like that too. We had a lot of little nitpicks.
Yes. I don't know how to say this. I feel like from the rest of this podcast, we're kind of going to crap all over Battlefield.
It's going to be a little bit of a bitch fest. If it has, I mean, it already has been.
Which is why I wanted to get the good stuff out of the way, to express that deep down we do love the series, specifically Battlefield 3 and Bad Company for me. Unfortunately, so much went wrong with 4 that all those things you were willing to ignore in 3 and ignore in Bad Company have sort of come to a head.
Yeah,
whereas
I would agree.
Now the game is almost garbage compared to the rest of the stuff. It's snowballed to the point of no return.
It's with 4, I would say it has snowballed to the point where the series is not nearly as much fun as it was and as much fun as it could be.
Yeah. It's a very faint difference between 3 and 4, but there is an inherent unfunness, which is an awful word, I'm sorry, to 4 that wasn't in 3. In Bad Company 2, that game was a huge amount of fun. The best example is that, and I bring this up to Dan all the time as to why Bad Company was so much better. In Bad Company 2, your objectives needed to be damaged, not planted.
Right.
So you could go and plant a bomb on the objective just like you do in 3 and 4, and that would blow it up and do the exact amount of damage it needed to do. However, if that wasn't an option, you had other options. You could bombard it with a tank. You could just grenade it until it exploded. It required a bajillion grenades, but if you really wanted to do it that way, you could.
Did they have like a health meter for it or something?
Yes, okay. It was like a health meter. But the most fun thing in the world was that you could blow it up with C4. So what you would do, there were 2 pretty classic ways. You would either spawn a MAV, which is like a little helicopter. Actually, in Bad Company 2, it was a helicopter.
Kind of like a helicopter drone.
Yeah. You would spawn a MAV, throw a bunch of C4 on it, and whoever the MAV driver was, he would drive it into the point, and
the C4 guy
would blow it up. And it required coordination and forward thought and thinking outside the box. That was a ton of fun. A lot of times you would put C4 on the front of an RV, just drive it into the point, hop off, blow the C4 up. It facilitated that sort of sideways thinking. Your only option wasn't run up and plant a point.
It's like you're working around the game.
Yes.
Like, there's a problem, and you're working within the means of the game in a creative way.
Right.
And it seems like in future games, when you find that creative solution, they cut it off. They stop it.
Yes, they're like, you can't do this. That's too much fun.
Yeah, and a perfect example is how you could use the MAV as like a hovercraft in 3 to get up to places where you wouldn't normally be able to get to.
Right.
And then they said, nope, you can't do that anymore. But it's like, who cares? If you're gonna waste your time doing that on top of a building, big deal. Like, realistically, like, how strategic is that ever? It's not. It's just fun. It's a fun thing to do.
And the other thing about Bad Company that I thought made it so much more fun was that you could just blow up anything. And they sort of let you do that in Battlefield 3, less so in 4. But basically, there was no structure that was unkillable. If you hit it with a grenade launcher enough times, that building was coming down.
Mm-hmm.
And that led to some really fun stuff, too. Because if there was a point in a building and you blew up the building, the point blew up.
Yeah. That is not a thing in 3 and 4.
Not at all.
I feel like things go explodey.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's the exception, not the rule.
And if a building does collapse, it's very canned.
Yeah,
it's
like
okay, it's done enough damage, now the building's going to fall down.
Yeah.
Whereas in Bad Company 2, it was like, we blew up all the walls and the building came down.
Yeah, and like I guess, especially in Grand Bazaar, there's a lot of areas where you can like blow out a wall, and there's sort of like a secret room in there. And I feel it's like, that's such like a video game thing to do.
Yeah, and
it's like, oh, this is the part that'll blow up. But sometimes if like you hit just wrong with the M320, it's not going to trigger that explosion event.
Or
come on.
There would be a garage door, and some of them you could blow up and crawl in. Some of them you couldn't. And there was no real rhyme or reason as to which was which.
Yeah.
It was like you just had to know, like, oh, that one I can blow up.
Inconsistent.
So, I just thought Bad Company 2 was so much more freeing. If you could do it, you could do it. Or
Right.
if you could think it, you could do it.
Right.
And as the series has gone on, that has diminished.
One of the things for me that has definitely made the game not fun is sort of this dichotomy between the fact that these are video games. They need to be fair, they need to be fun, they need to be reasonable. And presenting these like these are supposed to be war simulators. And what I mean by that is they do things that sort of completely take you out. Like if this is supposed to be like what war is like or what war will be like in the near future, they have stuff that's just not that's just ridiculous. And one of the things that frustrates me the most is the kill cam. And I realize they have to show the player something while they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs waiting to respawn. But in Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, you see the player that just killed you. You see him running around. You see what they're doing. But like you're already dead. You shouldn't be seeing that. So the kill cam is most annoying because if you're a sniper, the whole point is that you're supposed to be hidden. You're supposed to be secretive. You're recon. You're stealthy. If the first, you can shoot at guys and that's fine. You don't give up your position. But if you kill them, they know where you are now. They can come hunt you down. That is completely the opposite of the whole point of that whole class. If you're just assault and you're just running around, everybody's like, it's a big mishmash of people running. It's not a big deal. But if you're trying to be stealthy and do something and then you kill somebody in the process, you completely blow your cover. And I found that like just that dichotomy between this is a ridiculous feature in a video game compared to this is a war simulator, like really hard to reconcile. Couple other things that detracted from my enjoyment of the game were there's a real lack of in-game info on your guns, like their stats, and then also it's hard to tell when you're going to unlock parts for your gun, what you're going to unlock next, and like I just want to be able to like know this stuff, and I want to know which okay, that gun looks cool. Is it better than this gun? I will use a gun that looks like the noisy cricket from Men in Black if it's gonna kick ass. I don't care what my gun looks like. There's a lot of cool looking guns. I want the best one. I
have an issue with the whole gun unlocking mechanic in general.
Okay. Do tell.
There's a lot here. Sit down, Dan. The first being that high-level players have better guns, which
Or the idiots that paid an extra $50.
we'll get there. Higher level players have better guns, which makes the learning curve for the game extremely difficult. Because the players who have sunk in 100 hours are naturally going to be better than the people who didn't, the people who are just starting out. And then on top of the fact that they just simply have more experience, now they also have the best guns in the game.
Even if they're not better, just that slow grinding of the game. I mean, you can't be so bad you're not going to get any points.
Right.
That slow grinding away is going to earn you something.
So, while it never totally ruined the game for me, when you are a low-level player and you're getting killed by what seems like super guns, it's really frustrating.
Yeah, I made the comment multiple times that, like, what the fuck gun did I just get killed with? Is this like a made-up gun? Well, what is this? And, of course, it was always some weird unlockable by having premium.
And that's another thing, is the whole premium mechanic. So, I understand Electronic Arts is in the business of making money, and I can't totally fault them for taking people's money. But the ability to unlock better equipment by just paying for it
It's unsavory.
Unsavory is a nice way of putting it.
Leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah. I basically feel like at this point, when I buy a Battlefield 4 for $60, I'm not getting the whole game.
Yeah. You really got to grind away at it to get the whole game.
And I'm going to try not to spin this off into a total tangent about downloadable content.
It's germane. It's a huge part of Battlefield. It's part of the experience.
Downloadable content can really be a two-edged sword. Because sometimes it's really wonderful.
Borderlands is a great example.
Borderlands is a great example.
I feel like you get a lot of value out of the DLC.
Yes. When none of the Borderlands downloadable content feels like it would fit into the main game.
Yeah.
You never get that feeling that this was cut so they could sell it later.
It feels like a bonus mission.
Yes, exactly. Like, you don't feel like you're getting ripped off.
Or like the one we're working on for The Last of Us. Like, that's different.
Yes.
And, the whole thing it's just set up differently.
It's a complete side story. It came out a few months later. It's like, hey, you know what?
Remember that game you played?
You enjoyed Last of Us. Here's a little bit more. You can pay for it. You don't have to. That's fine. But certain companies, Capcom being the most egregious, are actually cutting content so they can sell it later.
That's despicable.
It's despicable.
So what does Capcom do
specifically?
specifically?
The example that's jumping out at me right now, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, when that first came out, they announced ahead of time, hey, you know what? You can download these characters. You can get Jill from Resident Evil, or you can get Shu McGrath. Two really shit characters, by the way. The thing is, though, those characters were on the disc when it shipped.
Is Shu McGrath the guy with the eyeballs and the
Yeah.
tentacles? I love Shu McGrath.
He's a real crappy character.
That might be the case. I really love him. Was he unique to the series?
No.
Where's
not.
he from?
He is from Marvel.
Okay.
He's some, like, pseudo-god.
All right.
He's...
Sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack us. You can edit that.
I will. Well, I might. Those characters were on the disc, which means you already owned them. All they're selling you is the rights to them. It's if you want to say, look, you know what, we really wanted to include Jill. We were having trouble nailing down her character. We couldn't include it on the game. 6 months later, she's going to come out. She's only going to be $2. I'm fine with that. The character was done. All they did was take characters out so they could sell them later. You paid $60 for this game. Why don't you give us 10 more? You can have these two crap characters.
Stuff like this when probably like early 2000s, like 2000 to 2005. I pretty much only I played like Halo on the Xbox, but I was a big PC gamer. Like I was big into like Medal of Honor and Wolfenstein or Return to Castle, like that kind of stuff. I was big into those. I was big into like PC stuff. Then I sort of slowly switched to console gaming, and I was real selective with what I bought because it was going to be 50 or $60 a pop, and but for the most part, I didn't have any issues with that. But then I hear about something like this, and that makes me want to just be a PC gamer, download a mod that unlocks those characters, and then not give Capcom any money at all.
Yeah,
it's like a real motivation to just say "F you," I'm going to do this another way.
I agree, and it's just. The nickel and diming has become too much.
Tedious.
And at this point, they're selling season passes for stuff that isn't even available yet. Like, they haven't even told you what it is.
Yeah.
BioShock Infinite had a season pass when it came out. They didn't tell anybody what you were going to get with that. They were like, oh, buy the season pass. We'll give you free stuff later. Well, what free stuff? Oh, don't worry about it. Just give us your money. And it turns out... one out of those three things was pretty crappy, and now you've already spent your money for it. The whole downloadable content thing needs to come to some sort of head. Like, it's become too much and unbearable for me.
That bubble needs to burst.
I agree. I know the straight-up thing is I am willing to pay extra money for new content. Dead Rising 3 came out with that ridiculous expansion where you can play as Street Fighter characters.
Yes!
And
oh my god! That's incredible.
It's silly and fun and completely unnecessary. I'll pay for that. It's like it's extra content that would not make any sense in the game.
Yeah,
that's fine. But in Battlefield 4, I can't bear to have people paying for these guns that take me so long to unlock. And that model works sometimes. Like, I'm a huge League of Legends player. The difference is...
it's free to play.
And that's it. League of Legends works the exact same way. Hey guys, here's 10 characters. You want to use those 10 characters? That's great. We got 100 other characters sitting over here. They're like $2 a pop. You want to play with those? That's fine. Or you can just grind with these characters, earn enough free points, and eventually you'll unlock those other characters too. None of this costs you a dime unless you want to pay for it. That's fine. EA charges $60 and then uses that model.
Yeah, so they've got 60. I sent you a video about a guy who was ranting about Battlefield Hardline and like how much money you spend on these games between the game and then premium and then are you anything else? I mean, if you get does premium include all the DLCs?
Yeah.
Okay. So but you're essentially paying like $100 for one of these games, $120,
which is ridiculous.
That is too much.
And on top of that, the games are oftentimes broken when they come out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, what's the recent where you hack everything? Watch Dogs.
Yeah.
I've seen like the people on Reddit have like lost their mind about all the like glitches and errors and fuck ups in this game.
In Watch Dogs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it just seems like a real glitchy, unfinished game.
That's a Ubisoft thing, though. Like, every one of their games is ridiculously glitchy when it comes out.
That shouldn't be the case.
I agree.
That's sloppy game design.
But they need that game to come out this fiscal year so they can, please X investors, so they give them more money so they can make another game later. People make fun of Valve for how long it's taken Half-Life 3 to come out.
Is that actually in development? Is that something they're actually working on, or people don't even know?
It has to be, right? It doesn't matter, really, to make this point.
Okay.
If and when Half-Life 3 comes out, it's going to make $1 billion, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a really good game. It might not be the best game of all time, but it's going to be of a certain caliber of quality.
They know that there's a lot of hope and hype riding on it. Like, people expect it to be good.
Great things. But Valve is going to make their money, and they're content just waiting it out until they make their money. They aren't rushing a game out the door to make those dollars. Large video game companies are so much a corporation now that it's disheartening to all of video games. It's dampening them.
Well, it's like it's like a Transformers movie. It's like a shitty, big blockbuster, summer flick, which isn't really good.
Right.
It's like, there's 10 things that could have been better about this.
This is my plea to our listeners. Don't buy the next crappy game. If it's crappy, just don't buy it. All right? The next Call of Duty is not going to be a good game. I'm telling you that right now. It's going to be worse than the last one, which was worse than the one before that, and worse than the one before that. Modern Warfare 1, great game. Modern Warfare 2, pretty good game. Not as good as Modern Warfare 1. Modern Warfare 3, pretty crappy. Ghost, even crappier. This next one, it's going to be worse, guys. I'm just spoiling it for you. It's going to be worse. Don't buy it. Just chill out. Support like little games. That's all I'm saying. Support little games.
I'm kind of it's really funny. A game that I will pay. It's ridiculous. Like Fez. How much did Fez cost? $15?
Yeah.
10, 15?
I think it was 15.
The only negative about that game is the map. That game cost $15.
Right.
I love that game. Like, I will carry a torch for that game for the rest of my life. That is such a beautiful, creative, wonderful indie game. I mean, granted, what it's doing is not on the same scale as Battlefield. And I know it's like so apples to oranges, but the amount you pay for like such a perfectly executed game, right. It's laughable.
A rewarding experience.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I
memorable
was
experience.
Rewarded for playing Battlefield 4.
No.
I just want to stress the fact that there are brilliant games being made out there that aren't produced by somebody like Electronic Arts or Capcom. Try to support those games. Like, you're going to be disappointed by Call of Duty. You could buy 4 games on Steam for the same price you're going to play for Call of Duty. Maybe one of them will be a junker, but you know what? You'll probably have a rewarding game experience.
Just to continue on that tangent, it really depends on why you play games. Are you playing games to have a communal experience? Are you playing games for an emotional experience? Do you want to enjoy a good story? Do you want some sort of moment of glory? Like in a sports game or in Battlefield or something like that. Like why are you playing? And if you're playing for story or for an emotional experience, you could probably do so much better with indie games. I mean, I've supported a couple of indie games now on Kickstarter, and like they aren't out yet. The thing could totally be a dud. They could turn out to be shitty games. Who knows? But I played a demo for one of them, and it's unique. It looks really interesting. It was called Spirit. Now it's called Quora, Qora. There's a demo out for it if you want to check it out. It's just like a really unique, interesting game, and it's going to stand out so much more than the next Call of Duty or Battlefield will. Those are going to be a flash in the pan, ultimately, because in 10 years from now, they're all just going to run together as a first-person shooter meat grinder. Anyway, consider indie games, consider Kickstarter stuff, consider other avenues for better quality experiences.
And this is coming from 2 people who have bought the last 3 Battlefields.
Yeah.
I have Call of Duty sitting on my shelves.
I have 100 Halo games. Right. I buy big budget games. It's just the best ones sometimes are the littlest ones.
My dream is that our listeners are the ones who are saying, "I can't believe they played a Battlefield game."
Yeah.
I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
So getting us sort of back on track to eventually wrap this up. There is something that I wasn't sure if this should fall under Is It Fun? Or we have another category to talk about called interface, which we'll get to in a minute. But when you are testing a new gun or swapping parts for your gun or whatever you're doing, there's no easy way to test it in Battlefield. But Greg and I have recently started playing Army of Two, Devil's Cartel, which that's an interesting game, and I'm going to really enjoy talking about that one when the time comes. But one of the coolest features is that when you go to the armory to test out your gun, without even buying new parts for it or checking stuff, like if you have access to it, whether you've bought it or not, with just one press of a button, you are in the firing range and you can test it. And that is so cool. It's like seamless. And Battlefield could do that. If Army of Two can do it, Battlefield can do it. It is like they could not do that functionality better than they've done it. It's amazing.
And it's interesting because this Battlefield does that worse than any other game. The only way to change your guns is while you're playing.
Yeah, you can't even reassign outside of the game.
Right. So what they did to do for some reason is if you don't want to do it while you're in a map because you're a teammate who's in a map that you're useless while you're messing around with your guns.
Yeah.
They created this like island that's sort of like a giant firing range. So you can load up the island and then you can mess around with your guns and try them out and all this stuff. But it's just such a hassle. In Battlefield 3, you just went into My Soldier, all your guns were listed, and you just changed your guns.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, you know what? I really want this rocket launcher. I like it better.
Or I want the automatic pistol or whatever.
Right. It was just in a menu, and you were good. It took you 30 seconds. You were good to go.
And it's these are multiplayer games. You don't want to wait on your friend screwing around. And
story of my life.
Yeah, seriously. So it's nice to be able to just like on your own time easily just do that on your own in a menu, like or when the game's done, like oh that pistol sucks and you're done playing for the day. Oh, let me go swap that out.
Right.
While I still remember.
I don't know why they took that away.
Because they hate you.
Battlefield 4 was such a step back in so many different ways.
Like all these nitpicky little features, it's a step back.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you talked about the scoreboard.
Yeah. No, I didn't. Not yet. So in the previous game, you press the back. Like I just so used to pressing like select or the back button or whatever. There's a button you hold down, and that shows you the scoreboard for that map. Now it's the start button. Why would
they change that?
Do you remember when we first played? We literally could not figure out.
We couldn't figure it out at all.
What button are we?
Because if you press start, you expect it to pause
or
bring
take
up
you
your
to like
scoreboard.
a main menu or something.
Right. That's not how it works.
Nope.
Or actually, so even if you press start, I think it does take you to the menu. But if you hold it down, you bring up the scoreboard.
Is that why we had a hard time finding it?
That might be it, because we were like, none of these buttons do anything, because we were tapping it.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't care about my list of friends. Stop showing me this.
It's kind of infuriating.
Yeah.
I hate changes for no reason.
Change for change's sake.
Sometimes a game will just take the grenade button from Y and put it on X. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
We're on interface now, right?
Yeah. I guess we can move on to the next part.
My other big interface issue is that in this one, you can't form a squad and then join a game.
Yeah.
In Battlefield 3, you could. You formed a squad, and then somebody joined a game, and then you all joined together.
And you would hope that you'd be on the same team.
Well, that's another issue.
But at least you'd get into the same server.
Right. Now, the only way to do it is somebody joins a game, and then you try to join them. If the game's full, tough nuggets, you might not wind up on the same team, any of that.
So they added in this beta feature, which we have not successfully used, which allows you to create a squad, and then it appears that you can join like a quick match, but you have very little options on where you end up, and we never got it to work.
Yeah, it's broken.
It may work. We may have had some other issue that we're not aware of, and they indicate that it's a beta feature, but as you've mentioned, it worked fine in Bad Company 2.
Right, why can't this work?
How many years ago did that game come out?
3?
Yeah.
Actually, it did not work in Bad Company 2. It worked in Battlefield 3. In Bad Company 2, it works the same way as 4. Somebody would have to join a game, then you would have to join them.
Oh.
Yeah, sad face.
It just seems odd that they would have a feature that works fine in an older game, and then they would break it in the next one. And then they would have to bring it back as a beta?
I would like to point out, I don't know if it was on this podcast or not, Halo 2, which came out when? 2001?
2003 or 4, somewhere around there.
Halo 2, when it came out, had matchmaking. You joined a group, and then that group could find other people. It would fill in a slot. Say you were playing an 8-player game, 4 versus 4. You had 2 people in your group. You would join a group. It would give you 2 players. It would find 4 other players. You would play. You'd like those 4 players. You'd group up. It would take you to another game. It would keep going on and on and on.
And if somebody left, they would fill it in.
That was
perfect.
11 years ago. How are people still struggling with this?
I don't understand. And one of our biggest frustrations, I found more with 3 because we played that one so much. We played so much 3 compared to 4.
It's ungodly.
But how many times did we say to each other, this would have gone so much better if we had just started this at the beginning of the map? Because
Yes.
you just get, like, there's like a Battlefield sort of, like, second sense that you get, or sixth sense. When you start it from the beginning, you sort of get a feel for everyone and how it's going and the dynamics and what's happening. When you start it halfway through, you're sort of, like, thrown into a nightmare.
And the fact of the matter is, when you join halfway through, that usually means that one team is losing badly and half those players left.
And then you're stuck on that team.
And then you're stuck on the craft team.
But I would happily sit there for up to 5 minutes waiting to fill in a server and start a match.
Yes.
Or give me the option at least to not join games mid-game. I'm sure there are plenty of people that do not give a crap and are happy to join any map at any point. I'm not one of those people. I want to start at the beginning every time.
I'm going to switch topics.
That's fine.
Just going back to the game being broken when it comes out, both Battlefield 3 and 4 had significant server issues when they launched.
Yeah.
It was impossible to join games.
Yep.
Battlefield 3 was a little worse than 4.
Yeah, it was pretty bad with
Even
3.
to the point, I actually wrote it. I called tech support, or I didn't call them. I did the chat with EA tech support, and I said, "When is your game not going to be broken?" And the response was, "It's not broken." I said, "Really? Because it's not working at all, and my friend's isn't working, and neither is his friend." I'm like, "The game is broken," and they just wouldn't admit that it was broken. It was awful. I mean, I was desperate. I was so desperate I actually contacted EA to figure it out.
Yeah.
That's unacceptable. You can't just release a broken game and patch it later.
Like, it's launch day, guys. You have to have it together for launch day.
Yeah.
Launch week. You have to have it together. Didn't one of the more recent SimCities also have, like, a huge issue, the most recent one that came out?
It did, but I think that was a bigger issue with their crap game.
Either way.
But that was also an EA game.
It's launch day. It has to work
Right.
on launch. That would be like waiting in line for a movie to see it at midnight. Wait in line to see the new Star Wars movie at midnight, then you get in there, and half the movie doesn't play. Or every 5 minutes, we're going to kick you back. You're going to start the movie over.
We're going to start this again.
Or there's a 10-minute scene you're not going to get to watch. Like, nobody would accept it there. Why do they accept it from their video games?
Take servers. They never have enough servers. That's the issue. The real deep down issue is that they don't want to pay for the extra servers for the launch of a game.
Buy the servers for that and then sell them off when your demand
or
slows down.
You know what? We're playing Army of Two.
Yeah.
That's an EA game. Not that many people are playing Army of Two. Take some of their servers for a week. Take the servers from a couple other games that aren't being played as much. Like, yes, maybe Army of Two may have slight decrease in servers for that week, but you got to reuse them. You got to have a better plan.
Yeah. I feel your pain.
I know. Why do we buy these games?
Well, we'll get into that in a little bit when we get to Hardline. We're going to talk about that towards the end.
Would you recommend this game to anybody, Dan?
I feel like, I mean, having been out of Battlefield 3 for a long time, or being out of the Battlefield series for a long time, and coming in with Battlefield 3, I feel like I did all right. I was a little overwhelmed at first, but I picked it up pretty quick, and I'm competent with the series now. I understand it. I felt like 3 was a better introduction than 4 would be for somebody to this series. I feel like 4 would be a little overwhelming. Maybe I'm not being fair. Maybe people are better and smarter and pick up things better than I think they would. I feel like 4 is best for an experienced first-person shooter player who maybe not necessarily has played Battlefield but understands the mechanics of a first-person shooter, and perhaps somebody coming from Call of Duty who's looking for something a little bit different, or looking for something that's a little more, potentially a little bit more strategic, more larger maps, slowed down just a little bit. Vehicles, are there vehicles in Call of Duty? Is that a thing? I don't know.
I don't know.
We don't play them, but that's, I sort of see a particular sort of like subsection of gamers that this is good for. I mean, like, age-wise, I could see like a huge spread because I'm sure there's like a billion 10-year-olds out there that are kicking my ass playing this game all the time. But like a friend of ours recently, female gamer, got an Xbox 360. I mean, she's definitely behind the times on that one, but she got an Xbox, and she asked us for a bunch of games to play, and like no way in a million years would I recommend Battlefield to her.
We came up with this huge list. We're like, oh, you should play this and this and this.
Like
and
Assassin's Creed and Left 4 Dead and Halo and Portal. We had a whole bunch of games.
I didn't once think about recommending this.
No way in hell.
I don't know who I would recommend this game to, Dan. Specifically for. I mean, the series, yeah, I think I would recommend the series of Battlefield. You asked me a while ago if we were going to buy the new Call of Duty, and I was like, no, we're a Battlefield house. And I meant that. To me, Battlefield speaks to me as a gamer more than Call of Duty does.
I get sucked in by the sci-fi elements of the new one. I've given up on that.
But with 4, I just feel like there's too many mountains to climb to make it a worthwhile purchase.
Yeah.
So I don't think I could recommend 4 to anybody. Maybe 3. At this point, 3 is $10. It's just as good as a game as it was 3 years ago when it came out. I'll still play it. I would recommend 3 to somebody. I would be very hard-pressed to find somebody I would recommend 4 to.
Having now played 3 and 4, I would gladly go back and still play 3.
Yeah.
I have much less interest in continuing to play 4 at this point.
That's exactly it. I brought this up earlier just between you and I, that 3 is still a viable game to me. That's still something that I see on my shelf. It's like, oh, you know what? Maybe Dan wants to play Battlefield 3 tonight.
I do. I do. I want to play Grand Bazaar.
All right.
I miss it.
We'll play.
And Dam of Van Peak.
So I don't ever think I'm going to put Battlefield 4 back in my Xbox.
It'll happen, but we are not going to get back seriously into it. There's too many other games that are coming out, especially with like stuff coming out down the road later this year for the Xbox One. Like I feel like Battlefield 4 has run its course for us, and like there are games which we have not finished that still kind of like in the back of my head. I'm like, oh, we should really get back to those. Like I want to play those. Those were fun. Like I want to finish that. Borderlands 2. Some of that still...
Yeah, we still have one DLC left of that.
Yeah, we still have a little bit left on that series. And Battlefield 3, I still think, like, man, that's fun. I want to get back to that. But I don't think that... and they keep throwing DLC at Battlefield 4. They have one which is, like, you're on, like, ocean ships. That's not fun. Ocean's never fun. They just... Ugh.
I know. That's the perfect... Ugh. That's just it.
Would you play the next installment in the series?
So the next game coming out is Battlefield Hardline, which seems really cool to me.
Unique.
Yeah. It's a cops and robbers thing, which has a lot of potential. I like that the cops aren't supposed to kill the robbers.
They have tasers.
You like tase them and you arrest them. You like tie them up. That's really interesting to me. I don't know how the game works. This is me hoping.
Yeah, we've seen some like E3 videos, and that's about it.
Going back to SOCOM 2, when you died in SOCOM, you had to wait until the level was over, and sometimes that was a really long time.
That's like how it is in Counter-Strike.
Yes.
And that's sometimes how I think it should be, because people, they just do the dumbest shit because they know they're going to be back in the game in 15 seconds.
Right.
There's no sense of your mortality.
I would really like in Hardline if when you're arrested...
You're done.
You're done. I think it will instill a more strategic element to the game. I am going to be shocked if that's how the game is.
I was just thinking about that. I'm like curious, like how's that going to happen? Can you like break out from being like hogtied?
Even if a friend runs up and like cuts the ties, that's a cool element. Be like, well, my friend's back there. I can go back and get him, or I can just keep running for the objective. That's a fun idea to me.
Yeah.
Hardline has had a beta after E3, and the response to it has been very poor.
The largest thing that I've heard online is this feels like a mod this should not. You shouldn't have to pay another $60 plus presumably premium on top of that for this game. Like, that seems like you're overpaying for what this is. I don't know if that's true. I didn't play the beta. I've only seen the video they showed at E3. Is that similar to what you've heard?
Yeah, that tends to be the consensus that I've seen. So, I'm excited for Hardline. It's being made by the guys who did Dead Space 3, I believe. I think it's Visceral Games.
That could go either way.
Here's the thing. Dead Space 3 was pretty boring. Because it was too long.
Yeah.
But it looked great.
That's true.
It played great.
That's true.
If they take what DICE has done and they just do their thing, I think it'll work. I don't think Visceral Games are bad game makers. I think Dead Space 3 just happened to be way too long. So, yes, I think I'm going to play Hardline. But this is my sort of last chance for the Battlefield series. If I get burnt by Hardline like I did with Battlefield 4, that's the end of the road.
For a while, anyway.
For a long time. Maybe I'll go to PC gaming after that. Like, I got a nice PC now. Maybe I'll buy Battlefield 8 for my PC. But I think console-wise, it might be the end of the line.
Yeah. We have... The potential to get really upset and angry playing these games is real high. Probably me more than you, but you get upset too.
Sometimes.
And, I mean, I'm upset like 99% of the time.
You're more likely to get upset when we first start playing a game. I'm more likely to get upset after we've played it for 100 hours.
Yeah.
Because I'm willing to remain calm while I'm learning something.
I'm not.
But once I have learned that, if things aren't going the way they're supposed to, like if they're bombarding us with tanks and I'm the only person, like, countering them with an RPG or something, that's when I get really frustrated. Once I know that I'm supposed to be using an RPG and I'm the only one doing it, my teammates aren't doing anything useful, that's when I get angry. But at the beginning of the game, if I'm 1 in 15, that's fine, I'm learning the game. I think you're the opposite.
Something we didn't talk about with 4 is the commander, which that's a unique addition to the game.
I still don't quite understand it.
I'm no expert with it, and I played it. I played for a couple of days. Ty and I sort of traded off doing it and sort of getting a handle for it and playing against each other. And you can throw resources in. You can use a drone to sort of scan everybody and put them on the map. Like you can do some things to sort of like help the players, but you're never going to do as much as if like you're in the game. But something that sort of speaks to what you just talked about, which would be a really interesting feature, would be if the commander could control player classes, or how many you have of a class. Like, if he sees that you're getting hit by a ton of armor and tanks, well, okay, we need more engineers.
That would be interesting.
So he can, like,
I don't know how you would do it.
I'm not... maybe he sets it, and then on your next respawn, you have to pick from the allotment of player classes.
Yeah, I think that could be a lot of fun if you have people who are willing to do it.
The problem is that, like, that sense of, like, camaraderie of your team and working together to get the objective, even on Rush or whatever else, it's like still like 75% deathmatch, 25% objective. Like,
right.
No matter what you're playing, it's always, I gotta get that kill, I gotta get that next kill. I'll do whatever I can to get that next kill. And a few people will follow the rules and do what they're supposed to do to, like, advance the mission, advance to the next objective, but it doesn't feel like most people do that. It feels like they're going for the kills.
Agreed.
I'm not sure how I feel about Hardline.
Yeah?
When you first mentioned it to me, I was excited. It was, I mean, I just figured they'd just make another war game somewhere in the world, North Korea or whatever it is next or whatever. So to do something so vastly different from what they've done before, I give them credit. It's unique. It's a different idea than what they've done. All right, they're thinking outside the box. That's a good thing. What I've seen, it looks fine. It doesn't strike me as that much more impressive than 4 or 3. But I mean, those games already look, as far as games go, they look pretty good already. So I don't really notice that stuff too much anymore. The bar is set pretty high, and most games hit that for me. I'm gonna be waiting this one out for a while to see what sort of develops with Hardline and what people think. I don't think I'm gonna pre-order this one. I think I'm gonna wait this one out.
Yeah, I don't think I'm pre-ordering anything anymore.
I heard, like, for example, I heard about Watch Dogs a while ago, and I was like, all right, this sounds kind of neat. And then it sort of dropped off my radar, and then more recently with like E3 coming up and everything, I started paying a lot more attention to it, and I was like, ooh, this looks really interesting. This was a game that sort of hits all the right buttons for me. You know, it's sort of sci-fi, and it's got that free world kind of GTA thing going on. I was getting really excited about it, and I came very close to like looking into maybe buying it or pre-ordering it or doing something. And then I realized that this is like a techie GTA clone, and I'm gonna free roam, and then I'm gonna get bored with the game. I'm not gonna want to do the missions, and that's gonna be it. And it's just gonna sit on my shelf like GTA 5 does. And so I'm really glad I didn't like pre-order this game when I first found out about it, and I didn't like get it the first day. I'm glad I sort of like waited it out and thought about it, and like I don't regret it at all.
I think with Hardline, I'm going to let it fall into where we're going with the podcast. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get it the day it comes out, but
we can plan for it.
Exactly. I feel like maybe a couple months after it comes out, we're going to have a week where it says, "Oh, well, you know what? We need another game. Hardline's $40 now. Maybe this would be a good time to do it." I definitely won't be buying it day one. That's for sure.
I'm starting to move more and more, like unless it's like Halo. I think Halo is the only thing I would ever get on release day, like guaranteed, no matter what. At this point, still, there are other games I would like to bait it, like maybe a Borderlands, maybe, but like Halo, still, I'm there in line to get that.
Borderlands is a definite for me. The new Metal Gear I'll get the day it comes out. Halo, mostly because you will. That might be it.
You would be in line for the new Shadow of the Colossus game if that ever came out, whatever it's called.
That's never happening.
What's it called? Guardian or something? No, not
The Last Guardian.
A lot of Guardian stuff going on. It's very confusing.
Well, this one doesn't count anymore. It's been 7 years since it was announced.
It's vaporware.
Something like that. It is vaporware.
So, do you have any final thoughts or like favorite moments from the game? Anything that really stands out in either 3 or 4? Anything?
Yeah, I don't think I have any Battlefield 4 moments that really stand out for me. Battlefield 3 is a different story. I have a lot of like really great moments from Battlefield 3, but the favorite thing, this wasn't like a moment per se. Dan is probably a better sniper than I am, mostly because he's devoted significantly more time to it than I have. It will record your longest sniper shot in the game, and it'll keep it as one of your stats. Dan's longest shot was 605 meters, which I will point out is ridiculous.
Like, that's a luck shot. That is 100% a luck shot. Like, I knew there was a guy there, but that's a luck shot.
Yeah, like you can... I mean, it requires a certain amount of skill, but at that point, you're really taking pot shots and just hoping they don't move.
For me, that's a luck shot.
Okay. So, of course, Dan and I have this mild competition between the two of us, so I had to get a longer shot. My longest shot is 603 meters. And it still bugs me that I can't get that extra 2 meters. Even if I tied you, I would have been content. But, like, my shot was it was on Noshar Canal, which hopefully people listening to this kind of know what I'm talking about. But there are aircraft carriers that the attacking team starts on. You're on the beach, or you're on, like, a dock, like a shipping dock. Then behind the shipping dock is a bunch of buildings, and that's where the second objectives are. I was on a building behind the first objective into the second objective, and I sniped a dude on top of the aircraft carrier out in the water. It's so ridiculously far away. I'm like, oh my god, this is the shot. I definitely got Dan. And then I was 2 meters short. And I'll just, to this day, I'm like, I got to get those extra meters.
I don't even remember when I got that, but I think it was on Operation Firestorm. I have a distinct feeling it was on that map.
Seems like
the right map. That's a huge level, and that's a good level to get it on. And wasn't there one too where I sniped a guy who was like on the very top of that pole in Operation Firestorm, like way, way up top.
I don't know.
That was a good one too. He was so high up, and like it was like impossible to hit him because he was so far away, and there was so much bullet drop. And he thought he was being such a dick and like such a badass. And then I shot him.
Well, do you have any other memorable moments?
Yeah, I do. This one it happened in Battlefield 4, but it could have just as easily happened in 3. So I was in what map is it? I was in Flood Zone, and it was towards the end of it when there's a lot of like buildings that are flooded, and a lot of like rooftop stuff going on there. I was inside of a building, going up a set of stairs, and I was approaching the entrance or the top of the stairs exit onto the roof, and there were 3 enemies in line going up the stairs in front of me. I knifed the first guy. They weren't moving too fast, but they were like, they were walking, I guess. They were going up relatively cautiously. I got the first guy. Nobody saw me. I get the second guy. The last guy still didn't see me. Then I got the last guy. So in a span of like 3 seconds, I knifed 3 guys. Now, that alone is incredible. But then I started thinking about it. So it was just really great to watch the whole thing transpire, because the first guy saw me knife the second guy and the third guy. The second guy saw me knife himself, and then the third guy, the third guy didn't really necessarily know what happened unless he saw his friends dead on the ground.
He didn't get the full experience.
No, he didn't. The first guy really got the full experience.
He got a lot.
That guy's my favorite guy out of the whole bunch. He saw it all. That I will remember that moment for the rest of my life. That was probably the most incredible thing I've done in these games.
All right, so we're wrapping up.
We are.
What would you score Battlefield 4?
I would give Battlefield 4 a 6.5. I would give Battlefield 3 an 8.
Yeah. I'm not going to be so nice on Battlefield 4. I would give Battlefield 3 also maybe an 8.5, even a 9, maybe. Once they got past the crappy server issues at the beginning, I have no major complaint with Battlefield.
It's smoothed out. I mean, I was still yelling and upset all the time, but it's smoothed out.
Yeah, but that's you, not the game.
I know, that's me. That's me.
Battlefield 4, I think I'm going to give a 4. I changed it.
Apparently.
As we've been talking, I started out at a 5.
Have you talked yourself out of it?
Yeah, which happens every podcast, by the way. I started when Dan and I, talk about this beforehand. We come up with our scores, stuff like that. We don't tell each other, but we come up with it. I started with a 5, and then as we're talking, I'm like, oh yeah, that was kind of crappy.
It's like when you really sit down and think about it.
No, that was also kind of crappy. And as we've been talking, I've just felt more and more like I got burnt by Battlefield 4.
Ripped off.
Yeah, like that's the word that keeps popping into my head. It's just like I'm burnt. I felt like they took advantage of me. Like they put out a game that was supposed to be complete and it wasn't. The servers didn't work.
Parts of it are broken. There's features missing that were in previous ones. Here's another thing that's broken. When you go to join it, so it's already difficult enough getting you and your friends into a map. You look at so you go to the browse map thing, or to browse the different servers that are available. They start the top listing at the things that are full, or have one spot available. Why don't you do it the other way around? Yeah. For God's sake. I got to scroll through the whole thing to find a map that's got like 17 out of 25 people or whatever, so I actually have room to get in. So it's just this long list of things that make this game bad. Tedious. Tedious is almost too polite. That implies that there's something worth working for. Frustrating. Yeah, frustrating. There you go. I can't recommend this game. I don't want to play this game. 4 might even be too generous now that I'm still talking about it. -1. I think Battlefield 4 was a failure. I think that we got the inferior game. And again, that's my theory, but it's already the console versions are already a diminished version. We get 16 people in a map. No, it's 24 people in a map. The PCs get 36. It might even be more. What do you get on the Xbox One? Isn't it a ton of people?
It might be a ton of people.
I think Ty was saying something about that.
Just as like a very small example of this, in Caspian Border on Battlefield 3, which is the worst map in the world.
Worst, horrible.
There's a giant radio tower. The PC version, you can blow that radio tower up. You can't do that in the 360 version. So while I already feel like we're getting an inferior product playing the console version, with Battlefield 4, I felt that even more so because we weren't playing on the next-gen version. I think I give it a 4 out of 10.
All right.
So next week, we are going to have another episode of our Halo retrospective. Dan and I are knee-deep in Devil's Cartel right now, but both of us are going on vacation, so I don't think we're going to be able to finish it in time. And quite honestly, the last Halo one turned out way better than I thought it was going to.
Yeah.
So next podcast, we're going to do Halo 2, and then after that, we'll come back with Devil's Cartel. Army of Two, Devil's Cartel, which Dan is really enjoying.
Yeah. Also, we've got a good story about the previous Army of Two game.
Oh, yeah.
We'll save that one for next time.
That's true. That's good. So, killagreg at killagreg17.
Dan at BogroD. Check us out at player2pressstart.com.
You can find us at player2, PLAYRTWO. See you next week.
Adios.
Oh, that is a gross bug.
Whoa.
Oh, no, it's going to get on me.
Where'd it go?
It's right here.
What the fuck? Some sort of magic bug. Jesus.
You got it. Oh, thanks.
It's a trophy. I just want you to know what you're dealing with.